Okay, you guys, so this is day 11 of 30 to spiritual bliss, and I'm going to be talking to you guys about something. We're getting a little bit more into spiritual matters now that we've kind of been talking about the basics, about how to be kind and forgive and all that good stuff. So as people are logging on, today the conversation is going to be about, hi Lori, how are you doing? Lori, thanks for always logging on and watching. I appreciate it. So today we're going to be actually talking about how you are part of Source. And so a lot of times people don't realize that they are part of Source. They don't realize that that they are part of something that's even grander. So the big thing is that, and I'm sure you guys have heard this before, but a lot of people, especially people that are religious, they try so hard. Lori, thank you so much. I appreciate that. So a lot of times people really that are religious feel like what they are is they think of themselves as a human being that is trying to be spiritual, when you need to reverse that and you need to realize that you are a spiritual being. You're a spiritual being that's having a human experience. And there's a huge difference, because you're like, well, what's the difference? There's a huge difference, because if you're human and you're trying to be spiritual, then that means you're always going to fail because you're human. Okay. So it's kind of like going into that, that thing where you hear people say that, you know, like with religion, it's you're born into sin. So you're born a human, you're a bad, and you're going to fail. And I'm going to try to adjust this where I can get my phone in a better place so that I can, let's see if I can figure out something else here, because I'm wobbling too much here. And hold on, let me see if I can find something I can prop this up on. Let's see. Okay, hold on here. Sorry, you guys. Okay, let's see if this works better. Let's see if I can prop it like that. There we go. Okay. All right. So back to what I was saying. Okay. So a lot of times we, you know, all of us that are trying to evolve spiritually, we see ourselves as being a human being, and we're trying to be spiritual. And we're looking for all the tools and all the answers and all the things that's going to help us to evolve or to become enlightened. It's like, I'm trying to be enlightened. However, what if you reversed it? What if you reversed it and saw it completely different? What if you saw it as the truth? And that is that you're a spiritual being having a human experience. So one of the things that I like to explain to people when they don't really understand that is, what if you were a spiritual being and you were having a dog experience? So if you were a spiritual being having a dog experience, you would be going around sniffing other dogs. You would be, so like I have two dogs, okay? And I have a really big 100-pound pit bull, and he's a pit bull mastiff, and he's just this big. Hey Daniel, how are you doing? And anyways, so he's this really big dog, and I also have a smaller dog, and she's about 45 pounds, and he goes around, you know, like sniffing her and licking her and all that kind of stuff. So Daniel, we're talking about spiritual, about being connected to Source and knowing that you're connected to Source. And so like a lot of people think of themselves as being a human being trying to be spiritual. And I'm saying, what if you're a spiritual being trying to be human? So I suggested that we look at it from a dog experience. What if you were a spiritual being having a dog experience. Now, if you kind of separate yourself from humanity for a second and you say, okay, I'm a spiritual being having a dog experience. So I'm going to look at my dog Chief, okay? And he's having a dog experience. And so as a dog, what are you going to do? So you're going to go chase a ball, and you're going to run really fast to catch that ball, and you're going to be like, you know, my dog goes licking my other dog's ears, and he's constantly sniffing on her, and he plays tug of war with her, and they wrestle, and they're all like, you know, and doing all this stuff, and they're just having a blast, you know, and they're just having so much fun, you know, as dogs. So if you're a spiritual being having a dog experience, then you're going to embrace the idea of being a dog, right? So what if you're a spiritual being having a human experience? Well, what are humans? Think about that. Well, humans are a unique creature because we're intelligent, and we feel, and we experience, and we do so many different things, right? So as a human being, we're going to have a huge range of emotions that can provoke a lot of different things. What does a dog have? A dog has emotions too. They get angry, but does that mean that, oh, they're not spiritual now because they just got into a fight with another dog, you know? That's just because you have moments in your life where you're acting human doesn't mean that you're not evolving spiritually. You've got to give yourself permission to have this experience and completely embrace it. So if you are a spiritual being having a human experience versus a human trying to have a spiritual experience, it's a huge difference in how you're going to be looking at life. It's a huge difference. And so one of the things that we're going to be talking about today is realizing that you are, as a spiritual being, you're connected to Source. And the only problem that you have in your life, every other problem is not a problem. All of those are just an illusion. The only problem that you have in this life is that you're not realizing that you're connected to Source. Now you're like, some of you guys may not know what I mean by Source, okay? Source is the collective, it's what I would call God. It's not a being on a throne that's, you know, cracking a whip and, you know, doing any of that kind of stuff and saying, bad human, you did something bad. I'm going to throw you in a pit of hell or something like that. No. This is the I am presence of everything. It is the presence that's in everything. So I heard a story a long time ago that I loved. And, you know, we hear a lot of stories, and we've got to decide what story serves us. And this story served me. And it was the only thing that I really made a real connection with. And that was that the presence of the I am presence existed. And it decided to become creative and started to create. And it created multiple sides of self. And as it created multiple sides of self, it's basically like go out and experience and build and create. And as it expanded, it kept on going and going. And eventually we end up, I'm telling you the short kindergarten version here, now we end up with all of this that we have. And so basically each part of us is a piece that came from that presence, from the original presence. And it's still connected. It's still in us. We are like, I would say, like if my whole body, let's say my whole body, for example, everything that I am was all that is, my fingernail would be me, okay? And what I mean by that is God is everything, or let's say Source. We're going to use Source as a word instead of God, because using the word God can have some negative connotations for some people, because they think of that as being the judgment person that, lays the law down and throws you into a pit of hell. So we're not going to go there. What we're going to do is, I'm still trying to get myself comfortable here, trying to find a way that I can get in front of this. This is an all-loving, all-knowing presence called Source. And it's the source of everything. And that is where you originated from. And when you think of yourself as being disconnected from that, that's when you develop problems. But when you think of yourself as being connected to it, when you connect to the source, you find yourself able to do a lot more in your life. The only problem that you have is thinking that you're not connected to source. When you start thinking of yourself as trying to reach for something that you're already there, like I'm a human being trying to have it, hey, April. And if you look at yourself as being like, I'm a human being that's trying to have a spiritual experience, then you're causing yourself to be disconnected from source. As opposed to if you say I'm a spiritual being having a human experience and I'm connected to source, because my spiritual being is part of source. I am like the essence of source. I am like the breath of source. I am like one little hair follicle of source. It's like, if it's like a flower is part of source. And it was like, I was actually walking my dog this morning and I was outside and I was really thinking about this. And I was thinking, well, if everything is part of source, then this tree right here, boy, I'm losing my voice. Had this for a couple of days here. Let me get a drink. So if everything is part of source, then this tree is part of source. And I started thinking, well, if this tree has a consciousness, what is it thinking? It's like, what is this tree thinking? And then my dog goes and pees on the tree. And I thought, I wonder if this tree is thinking, thank you, dog, for peeing on this tree. Or is my dog thinking, thank you, hey, Centera. Or is my dog thinking, thank you, tree, for giving me a place to pee? And then, and it's like, I'm sitting here thinking about it. I know that sounds really weird. So happy to catch up with you and your stream. My stream is good now. Oh, awesome. Awesome. So, so what we're talking about is basically being a spiritual being. And the confusion that a lot of people have, and the biggest problem that people have, is that they feel like they're disconnected from source. But the second that you realize that you are part of source, everything starts to change. Because when you realize you're a part of something, then you realize that you have a place in it, and you have much more power than you realized that you ever had. And the only problem, the only real problem that you have in this world is thinking that you are disconnected from source. So by allowing yourself to carry the belief that you are connected to source, you're allowing yourself to experience things at a much more evolved and much more different perspective. So anyway, so as I'm thinking about this, and walking my dog outside and he pees on the tree, and I'm thinking, well, this tree is alive. People don't realize this. It's really interesting because, what is life? You only think of life as yourself. If this was a dead planet, it would be like Mars, for example, or like the moon. It would just be a big rock that doesn't have any life on it. Okay, but we live in a planet that is full of life. I mean, this planet is life everywhere. I mean, if you really think about it, like, water is life. I mean, the movement of the water. I mean, why is it moving? Well, you're like, well, the wind or the planets and all this other stuff. Yeah, but it's the life that's in the water. I mean, you've got fish in the water, and you have microscopic little beings, and there's so much going on. And a volcano, it's alive, and there's a movement of the earth. The earth shakes and it moves and it grows. I mean, the whole earth itself is a living organism with a consciousness. So this consciousness that we're living on, we're connected to, and it's connected to source. We're all connected to source. So if I'm connected to source, and earth is connected to source, and my dog is connected to source, and the tree is connected to source, then that means that I'm connected to the tree, and I'm connected to the dog, and I'm connected to Daniel. I'm wondering, oh, that's Donald. Oh, sorry. I thought it was Daniel. I was like, I thought that, I was wondering, I just saw you log in. Anyway, so that means that we're all connected to the same thing. And it's so we're all like part of the source. We're all part of it all. So it's like our consciousness is all connected. So what does that mean, Michelle? I mean, like, you're talking woo hoo 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 hoo, you know, and all this other stuff. You're kind of getting into the la 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 stuff. And I'm like, well, the thing is that when you realize that you're connected to source, you have no problems. So like, if you really imagine it, just use your imagination for 1 second, and you just pretend for a second that what I'm saying is true. Okay? Let's just pretend for a second, because it's easy to buy into and say, yes, you're right, I agree. But is it easy to actually implement and live by that? Like, okay, so like, I believe that if I click live on Facebook, I'm going to present myself. So that's a belief. That's a real life, like, I'm actively doing things that I know is going to happen. If I create an email and I hit send, it's going to go. If I dial my daughter's phone number, she's going to answer the phone, or she's going to send me a text message back going, Mom, I'm busy, I'll call you back later. So these are things that we know are true, and we actively act on it as if we believe it. Okay, so let's just take a second and let's use that same mentality. And what if you actually believed that you were connected to source, that you were part of it, not like an element that got, you know, drifted off and like literally detached from it, like you separating from the womb, you know, like, I'm gonna break this piece off and now you're gone. Nothing like that. Let's say that there was still like some kind of string, like an invisible string that you were attached to, like an energy that flowed through it, okay? And you were attached to it. So if that's the case, then let's just imagine for a second that you were attached to source. If you really believe that, would you have any problems? If you really believed it, would you have any problems? If you really believed, I'm going to say this again, if you really believed that, I mean, with the depths of your heart, just like you believe that if you send an email, it's going to get to that person. If you dial that phone number, that person's going to get that phone call. If you send a text message, that person's going to respond. If you really believed that you were part of source, how would your life be different? And really think about that. Well, if I believed that I was part of source, then I would believe that I was all powerful. I would believe that there's not a lot that matters except for love and togetherness and connection and family and the experience of life. So now it was like, wait a second, now if I am part of source, what if I was source, what would I do? Okay, what would I want? I mean, really think about that. What would I want? What would I do? Say I am source, okay? Say I am source. What would I do? What would I want? What would I really, really want? So I really present you to really think about that. Well, I'd probably want to explore and create and make and and discover and journey and see what happens. If I do this, what happens? If I do that, what happens? So what if I, what if I create this and leave it alone? I wonder what's going to happen with that. Do you remember, some of you guys may be too young for this, but years ago when I was a kid, there were these things called, I'm trying to remember what they're called. I think they were like, they used to call them like little mermaids or little, anyway, so they were, you'd buy this little like thing about like this big of water, and you put these little seedy like things in the water, and then they would like turn into these little fish-like things, and they called them like mermaids or something like that, or horse monkeys or sea monkeys, that's what it was, sea monkeys, that's what they called them. And we would sit there, and as kids, we would watch it and in fascination, like, what's going to happen now? What's going to happen now? Another thing we would do is we'd have these ant farms, okay? And you put the whole ant farm together, it's this clear glass, and you watch these ants create. And you sit there and you watch, and you watch, and you watch. You're like, what are they going to do now? And you were totally fascinated by watching it. So if you were Source, and you were that part, and you were really into this, and you create something like an ant farm, you'd be fascinated with watching it. You leave them alone for a little while, and you say, what are they going to do next? What are they going to do next? And so, but it's kind of, what if it was in you? What if you put your energy into those little guys, and you got to experience what they experience? You got to feel what they feel. You got to see what they see. What if one day that one little ant gains a consciousness and starts to ask questions itself and wants to become a creator? What if it wants to see and create as well? Then it literally can like reconnect with Source again and be all powerful. So let's go back to the original question. If you really believed that you were part of Source, if you really believed that you were the essence of this Source, this I am presence, this the universe, Source, how would you live your life different? How would you be? And if you reflect on that for a second, you realize that a lot could change. You see, the only problem that you have, it's not that you can't pay your bills, or that some family member pisses you off, or you loan money to somebody and they didn't pay you back, or that you got fired from your job, or that your boss ripped you a new asshole, or that you were pregnant, you lost the baby, or your son's on drugs. None of those things are your real problem. Your biggest problem is that you don't believe you're part of Source. And once you believe that you are a part of Source, your whole life will change in the way that you look at it, the way you see it, and the way that you create it. So think about that. How would you live your life differently? Now, I know some of you guys know me that are on, because I've recognized some of the names. So if you're willing to chime in and tell me what you would do different, if you really, really believe that, and think about that for a second, what would you do? How would you live your life different if you believed you were connected to Source? Your life would be a whole lot different. The way that you view life, the way you see life, you're going to be looking at it completely different. You're going to be, it's like when I walk outside and I look at the tree, when I sit on the grass, I'm like, this is part of me, and I'm part of you. We're all part of each other. And I'm like really reflecting on a lot of things, like, my dog is connected to me, And so as I'm watching him, and he goes and he pees on a tree, and I'm like, why does he pee on a tree? You know, why the tree? And how does the tree feel about him peeing on the tree? Does the tree say, I'm here for you to pee on? I have offered my services to you. That's my job. Or does the tree say, I'm offering you shade from the sun. I'm here to service you. And if you look at it like from a whole different perspective, I mean, the tree's obviously not talking to you. And I'm not schizophrenic listening to trees talking to me. And I'm not walking around hugging trees either. However, I am reflecting on the existence and the consciousness of the tree, because the tree is part of Source. Source created the tree, and the tree has life force energy in it. Okay, what is life force energy? You know, I tell you something that really stuck with me one day. Is one day, this was when he was in high school, and he said, Mom, do you know that the molecular structure of water is the same exact molecular structure of glass? And I said, what? And he goes, yeah, there's no difference. And I go, well, then what makes it different? And he goes, the speed of the molecules is what holds it together. And I was like, wow, that's interesting. And then I ended up realizing that everything is composed of the same exact thing. So this pillow right here, okay? It has all the same molecules that my body has, okay? Why is this pillow not talking to me then? If that pillow has everything in it, exactly the same thing, and why is it holding together? And why is it that it doesn't get up and walk? Why doesn't it have a consciousness? You know, I mean, like, what is it that's different about that pillow than me? And you're like, well, you have a brain. Well, so what? What makes the brain come alive? Like, why is it even working? Why is my blood moving through my body? Well, your heart's pumping. Well, why is my heart pumping? I mean, what actually makes that happen? I mean, the miracle of life itself is just crazy if you really think about it. It is the entrance of the spirit into the physical body that actually makes it come alive. It is the spiritual being that makes the person come alive. It is the exit of the spiritual being out of the shell that creates death, because it needs it needs to have that life force energy. Well, what's the life force energy? Well, exactly. Life force energy is part of Source. So, if you like the word God, everybody has God within them. So, I told you guys that I like to quote, and there's a quote in the Bible that says, you know, some of the disciples were asking Christ about, you know, where the kingdom of heaven was. And they were like, well, where is it? Where is it? Like, where is it located? And Christ said, you just don't get it. You guys are like not getting it. It's not up there, and it's not over there, and it's not over there. And they're like, well, where is it, Master? And he says, it's within you. It's within you. Well, if the kingdom of heaven is within me, what does that mean? What is heaven? What is the kingdom? It's not a pearly gates and all this other stuff. You're an immortal being, you guys, that has the ability to move in and out of different bodies and experience different lives and have so much. And, you know, I was talking to somebody one day, and they were talking about, you know, being in you know, there was this whole thing about soul farming and, you know, being trapped in this body and trapped on earth, and it's a prison and all this other stuff. And I was like, they're like, I'm done. I'm not doing life again. This is it. This is the end of my reincarnation. I'm not doing it again. And I just busted out laughing, and I was like, why do you have such a negative opinion about life? And he's like, I don't want to do this. I feel like I'm being forced into it. And I'm like, no, you weren't. You agreed to come into this life. You agreed to have these lessons. And, you know, the ones that have came here, honestly, you guys have got to see yourself as being strong, because the ones that are born into easy lives are people that probably have a really young soul, and they shouldn't be challenged in such a way that would be too much on them because they don't have the experience. But the older souls are the ones that have more difficult lives, and they do that because it helps their soul evolve a little bit faster. So the more challenges they have, the more you grow. So think about that for a second. If your life was just really easy and there was no problems, and then how do you learn? Well, you learn from pain. You have to walk through the darkness to get to the light. You have to, that's the only way that you learn, is through pain. And so all of us that have suffered and overcame it, we're like masters, right? We've overcame so much. We've already evolved. And so you've got to look at it from a different perspective. Every time I have a life lesson that comes into my life, I'm like, oof, I made it. It's like winning a race, you know. It's like, I did it, you know. I overcame that, yay. I've evolved another level, you know. I got past that. And that's what you got to look at it like, you know. You got to look at it as like this really powerful person running a race and like getting out there and doing it. But back to the thing that I was talking about, where this friend of mine was like, yeah, this is it. I don't want to do this anymore. That's it. I'm done. I'm not gonna come back again, and that's the last time. And I was just laughing. He goes, what, you don't believe me? I mean, you don't believe this way? And I'm like, I chose to be here. And he goes, why would you ever choose that? And I said, because I chose to come in here and help this world. I came into this life to be one of the people that are making a change. Now, you know, I've seen so many people logging on here, so I'm going to start talking about something that I feel really strong about, and it's something that I want to accomplish, and I'm hoping that maybe in my lifetime it will happen. So this is something that I want you guys to think about. Okay, so I was listening to a scientist that was talking about the 100 monkey effect, and if you're not familiar with it, just Google it. But basically, it's about collective consciousness, having an overall thought, and like if there's, all it takes is 10% of the population to change the overall consciousness of a whole group. So if you've got 100 people and 10 people collectively come together with one thought, then those 10 people can affect the 100 people, and everybody will change. Okay, and everybody will follow, because it takes approximately 10% for a change to happen. So I started thinking about that. Okay, if that's true, and I Googled how many people are in this world. Okay, now I don't remember the exact number, but I figured out 10% of that, and it came out to being 74 billion. Okay, so if 74 billion people change and awaken and get outside of this, oh, poor me, my life sucks, I hate my life, I hate the world, I hate people. If we can just start loving each other and start being kind, and we just start living that way, it sounds like a simple solution, right? Just be kind to people, forgive, and love. That's it. All we need is 74 billion, and the whole world will change. No more wars, no more fights, no more anything. I mean, to me, it sounds really simple. I mean, I think that we could change the world. And, you know, I was thinking about, how do you start a movement? Like, call it the 74B, you know, 74B movement, you know, or something like that. And I think that there's so many people awakening, you know. I don't know how many, but I can tell you from my lifetime that I've lived, I've seen a huge change. I have more people that come up to me and talk to me about things that they believe. And I think it's because so many people have made an impact. You've got people like Wayne Dyer and Tony Robbins and Deepak Chopra and Oprah Winfrey and Esther Hicks that have made a huge impact on this world. I mean, huge. I mean, they've dynamically really put out a different message. And that message is to be calm. Connect to your true source. Believe who you really are. And realize that because you are a part of this, because you are connected to the universe, because you are part of the universe, because that is part of you and you are part of it, that all you have to do is make that connection. And by making that connection, all you have to do is just start focusing on what it is you want, and that comes towards you. And a lot of people say, I believe it, but I can't make it happen. Well, that's because you don't really believe it. You want to believe it. But it's not working for you, meaning that somewhere inside of you, you still don't believe you're part of Source. You have to believe that you're a part of this great energy. You have to realize that it is part of you and you're a part of it. It's like as if, think of an ant farm for a second, okay? You've got all these ants and they all work collectively together. And so as an ant works collectively together with all of these ants, and they seem to understand each other, and they seem to have a neural, like a one mind kind of thing. And bees work the same way. And so it's interesting how that works. And so, but you take one ant away from that collective mind, and what ends up happening? Well, the ant functions just fine by itself. But if you put the ant back, what happens? It becomes part of the collective mind again. And that's kind of how we are. I think the reality is that you're the ant that's gone rogue. You're the ant that separated yourself from the farm. And we need to all kind of come together again and be part of that collective mind. And that collective mind needs to be about love, forgiveness, kindness, and realizing that you're part of Source. You're part of pure love. You were not born into this world full of hate and anger and pain. That was something you learned. It was something you learned from the experiences that you've had in this life. So if you weren't born into it, I mean, think about a baby. It's so precious and pure and innocent, and the only thing it does is make some noises when it needs its diaper changed, or when it needs a bottle, or it needs to eat, or something like that, right? So, you were born into this world pure of heart, pure of soul, pure of love. And that was the essence of who you really are. Look at little children. I remember when my kids were little, my son, for example, him and my nephew, who are about the same age, used to play together, and they're like 2 and 3 years old, and they were like, "Oh, come on, Preston, let's go play," la, da, da, and then every so often they start arguing over a toy, and Taylor came in there, and he was crying, and he was upset, and he's like, "He took my toy, he took my dinosaur," and I'm like, well, maybe that's because Preston wanted to play with the dinosaur. Maybe you should let him play with the dinosaur and you find a different toy to play with. And he's like, "But I want my dinosaur." And I'm like, "But you have so many other toys to play with. Why don't y'all share? You can play with the dinosaur for a little while, and he can play for the dinosaur for a little while." And next thing you know, Preston comes over to him and he says, "Tater, I so sorry. I hear you have dinosaur." And Taylor's like, "No, that's okay. You play with it. I'll play with my car." Like, if we could just be like that, seriously, it's like, if we could just be that forgiving and say, "Here, I didn't realize I upset you. Take the toy back." No, really. If it really means that much to you, take it. It's like, what did Christ say about, like, if somebody steals something from you, then, you know, if they take this, then give them your cloak too. Like, don't just, you know, if somebody feels that they need something that bad, hell, hey, you want this? You want this too? Here, go for it. Because and what that does is it makes people stop and think, and they're like, whoa, hold on a second. It makes them get outside of the madness that they're in. You know, I told you guys before that darkness cannot sit in light. Once light presents itself, darkness is either going to transform or it's going to run like hell. Think about it for a second. You have a pitch black room. There's all these shadows everywhere from everything. You know, everything's casting shadows. But you turn the light on, and what happens? There's no more darkness. So darkness cannot sit in light. So a person that has dark energy or a dark mind or dark existence, and I don't mean that as evil, I just mean that their life has been so full of sorrow and pain that they can't see the forest for the trees, that they end up behaving that way. And so, but if you shine light on that person and you shine love, sometimes it's just that love that'll heal them. That's all they need. Because why do people act bad? Well, people act badly because they've been hurt. So hurt people hurt people. That's the bottom line. So if somebody's being mean, that's probably because they're hurt. This is why they've been hurt so many times. But if you're kind enough to somebody over a period of time, they will start being kind back. Because they start seeing hope, and they start having trust, and they start feeling like there's a reason to be happy now. And if we all just gave everybody in this world a reason to be happy, we just started shining love on them, and we started being the person that we really are. Start being the spiritual being that we are. Stop trying to be the human having a spiritual experience, but be the spiritual being having the human experience. So if you were this beautiful spiritual being full of light and love and power beyond your even ability to even understand, okay? And let's say you just go and drop yourself in a body. What would you do if you had that knowledge? Well, I'm telling you right now, I'm giving you that knowledge. The knowledge is you need to wake the fuck up and get outside of your zombie land and realize that you're a very, very powerful being that has a direct connect to everything in this universe. You are part of Source. And as part of Source, you have the power to do anything. And with this power, you can heal with love. You can heal with your intent. But that power can also harm. You can hurt. You can destroy. So you have the power to destroy, and you have the power to create. And you have the power to make something blossom. You can take a flower and you can water it. And you can put it in the sun and you can watch that flower grow. Or you can decide to starve it and put it in the darkness and it will die. You're a part of Source with miraculous powers to be able to heal through love. And if you can just hold on to the fact that you are this very powerful being having a spiritual experience, and that you are part of Source, and that you have the power to be able to do so many different things, how would you do something different? I have the power to change people's lives, to be able to heal them, to teach them, to be able to help them. So I do it. This isn't making me any money doing this video. I'm taking time out of my day sitting in my office. You know, I do it when I'm driving and the things moving all over the place because I don't have any other time. I do it when I wake up, I don't have any makeup. I do it when I'm having a bad hair day and my hair is up in a bun. I do it when I'm on my way somewhere, when I don't have any other time, when I'm on the way to a birthday party. I'm doing it because I believe that I am part of Source, and I believe that I have the power, and I'm going to use that power. And I'm using that power to spread the word. And the word is love. Just stop sitting in your hurt. Get over yourself and start giving love. Stop asking for expectations. Stop loving with an expectation. In fact, I think that's what I'm going to talk about tomorrow. I'm not even going to get into that too much because I think that would be an awesome conversation to have with you guys. Just love and be love and be that spiritual being that is directly connected to Source. So the only problem that you have, the only real problem that you have, everything else is not a problem. The only real problem that you have is that you do not believe that you are connected to Source. And when you believe that you're connected to Source, there is nothing you can't do. And when you realize that, everything will change. And you just got to like dig inside of you. Most people want a sense of purpose. Most people, you know how many people that come into my office that say, I want to do what you do. I want to do what you do. Do you know how many people that have actually started doing it? I have had so many people I've been doing this for about 8 or 9 years, and I probably have close to 100 people who've told me that. You know how many people has actually done it? 0. You know why? Because we get so wrapped up in our lives that we worry too much about how much the money we're going to make, and well, I can't quit my accounting job to do this, and blah blah blah. I have chosen to walk this path because I came into this world to be part of that change. I came into this world to make a change. I'm not here to just sit on my ass and, buy a beautiful house and a beautiful car and all these things and become narcissistic and forget who I am. I'm here because we're in a critical point in this world. And it's, we've lived way too much acting like savages. It's time to stop. It's time to stop fighting. It's time to stop the war. It's time to stop arguing with people. It's time to stop being narcissistic. You don't have to be right. Who the fuck cares? Sorry I'm using foul language, but sometimes when I get a little excited, colorful metaphors start popping out. So it doesn't matter. The only thing that matters is that you come back to yourself, okay? We've evolved enough. We're gaining technology. We're creating so much power in this world. And we're coming to a crucial time in our lives where if we don't start living by love with all this technology, we can destroy ourselves and be like the Atlanteans, It's like, we're gone. It's time that we start acting like spiritual beings and stop acting like savages and animals. You need to be more kind and more forgiving and more loving. And so you guys that are actually just popping in, I'm actually about to tally this up. And I want you to really ponder this thought. Hello, how are you? I want you to ponder this thought, okay? That if you really believed that you were connected to Source, how would your life change? The only problem that you have is you do not believe that you're connected to Source. But if you truly believed, yes, unconditional love, thank you so much. If you believe that you were connected to Source, if you truly believe that, how would your life change? And I want you to really think about this. And if you really believed that you were a spiritual being that is having a human experience, and that you're here for a very specific reason, not to buy a new car, not to Yes, I know what you mean. Unconditional. I got it. And I'm not telling you that you shouldn't do that, you guys, okay? I mean, I just bought a new car, okay? And Shane and I are going to be moving into a new house in maybe about 3 or 4 months, you know? But it's not my purpose in life. My purpose in life is what I'm doing right now. My purpose in life is to get enough people that are willing to be like me, that's willing to step out there and really like hammer it in to get that message across. You know, like I said, all we need is 74 billion. And that's not, and when you think about if one person starts doing it and another person starts doing it, it turns into a domino effect. Okay? We just need to do, it's so simple, you guys. It's so simple. Just start being nice to people. Start with your own little garden that you have in your backyard. And that's a metaphor. Your garden is who is in your life. Start there. Just start with the people that are in your life right now. That's it. And if you start with those people and you start treating them with kindness and love and generosity and forgiveness, just start there. And then slowly start to expand yourself, slowly. And then you guys who don't have social anxiety, and thank you for all the loves, I appreciate it. You guys that don't have social anxiety, and you guys that are willing to put yourself out there, go for it. Go for it. Everybody, we need more people out there spreading this word, you know? We need people out there like letting people know that they have the power to make a change in this world. So anyways, if you guys are watching this live, put a 1 in the box. And if you're watching it as a replay, put a 2. And if you have watched my videos before, put a thumbs up. I would like to know who's coming back. And I am tallying this up for you guys. And anybody who just came in, go ahead and watch the replay. There was a lot of stuff that you don't want to miss. And you guys have a fabulous day. Goodbye.